Tonight, firing back. Tumbler Ridge Council takes issue with Northern Health. All access. Dawson Creek issues a new recreational multi-pass. And giving back. 100 women who care make a huge impact. Good evening and thank you very much for joining us. And we begin tonight with the Mayor and Council of Tumbler Ridge taking issue with Northern Health over cuts to emergency room services. They say while the district appreciates the health authorities acknowledging the concerns of residents, that acknowledgement does nothing to improve the healthcare situation they are facing. Northern Health released an update regarding emergency care in Tumbler Ridge. Council says the update does not provide clear assurances that 24/7 emergency room services will resume as soon as possible. They go on to say that the information provided instead only outlines reasons to continue the ongoing after-hours closure. And Council points to references that ambulance transport to Dawson Creek is a means of ensuring timely access to care. The district says this remains deeply concerning to Council and residents who continue to emphasize the need for local, around-the-clock emergency services to ensure community safety and confidence. Council says it continues to explore all possible interim measures, including support from the Virtual Emergency Room Rural Assistance Program. The district is also concerned that the longer the ER remains closed after hours, the greater the risk of losing existing medical and support staff. And they say that could further compound an already difficult recruitment and retention challenge. In a response, Northern Health acknowledges the difficulties of going back to the previous on-call staff model for overnights and weekends. And patients from the Peace region that are forced to travel to Vancouver to get health care already know how expensive that can be. But now there's a new concern. It's about a lack of accommodations when the FIFA World Cup comes to Vancouver, not only for fans, but also medical patients staying in that city that need long-term care. Now, the Holiday Inn near the Vancouver General Hospital has been a lifeline for out-of-town patients and their caregivers who need somewhere affordable to stay during treatment. However, during the World Cup, hotel rooms and short-term rentals will be very hard to find and financially out of reach for most people. And that's why some are urging the province to reach out to the hotels. They're asking for a block of rooms to be secured for out-of-town patients during the World Cup.
Knowing that this is coming, the planning is underway, and knowing that people can come down to get their procedures, or maybe their family members who are there to visit their families who are undergoing medical care. So this is part of the planning process.
We need the province to step up. We need them to say, we will pay market rates so that we can secure housing for our patients. And these are, perhaps these are the partners that we're going to partner with and actually provide space, and you can rely on XYZ next summer if you need care.
If accommodations isn't secured by and subsidized by the province, there is concern some out-of-town patients, like from the Peace region, will be forced to forego treatment next June and July during the tournament. The spread of measles continues to slow in northeast British Columbia. The BC Centre for Disease Control confirming no new cases since last Thursday. The number of confirmed cases in the Northeast remains at 209. Now, of the 295 cases across the province so far this year, 71% of those come from here in the Northeast. It's because vaccination rates in Northern Health continue to be below the provincial average. The age group with the highest rate of the measles is between 5 and 17 years old. That makes up 49% of all cases in BC. Now, the city of Dawson Creek launching a new pass that's being accepted at all recreational facilities. MultiPass is a prepaid punch card that can be used for swimming, an indoor climbing wall, skating rinks, and the new Kin Arena sports floor. Back in May, the city aligned drop-in pricing across all recreational programs, and that paved the way for a single streamlined pass that makes it easier for residents to stay active. Now, MultiPasses can be purchased at city recreation facilities or by phone. Well, the NDP government is making legislative changes to fast-track a multi-billion-dollar transmission line. It's part of a major effort to boost the provincial power supply and add billions to BC's bottom line. But as Dimitra Margolis reports, the MLA for Peace River South says it can be done at a fraction of the cost.
An announcement poised to make an impact.
We need the electricity. We need to leverage the benefits that we have here in order to be able to realize the prosperity that we want.
This new legislation
This law will mean we can move faster on the North Coast transmission line.
NCTL will mirror the existing line to double the electricity capacity and will be developed in 3 phases.
We need to ensure that we're accessing that clean, reliable, affordable power, the kind of power that will give us an edge in the global economy.
The province says the legislation is designed to meet the surging demand for power in traditional sectors.
Without these changes today, critical mining and LNG projects in the north simply won't move forward.
And emerging industries such as AI and data centers.
We intend to make it easier for companies to make that final decision by getting them access to clean, sustainable power at fair rates without billions of dollars in upfront costs that can stifle investment.
The province says once the NCTL is up and running, it's expected to add close to $10 billion to the GDP every year, generate about $1 billion in revenue to deliver services to people in the province and nationally, create on average 10,000 jobs, and they say it will assist in reducing greenhouse gas emissions by approximately 2 to 3 million tons of carbon dioxide per year. But some have concerns about how much this will cost in the meantime.
It's a $3 billion power line.
And says it can be done for a fraction of the cost.
That need can be met again with a resource, natural gas, that we already have in a 300 to 1,000 year supply in this province, and it can be done for a much, much lower cost and higher reliability.
Now, construction is expected to start in the summer of 2026. Demetri Marigo, CTV News, Vancouver.
Well, Canada's inflation rate increased to 2.4% in September, and that's up from 1.9% from the previous month. Stats Canada says the consumer price index rose due to a mixture of smaller drops in the price of gasoline and a 4% increase in food prices. Many economists are expecting the central bank to cut its prime rate by a quarter point on October the 29th. And with inflation numbers up primarily because of rising food prices, more and more Canadians are saying it's getting more difficult to make ends meet. Kathy Lee has the details.
Canadians are paying 4% more year over year for food at the grocery stores, and it continues to be a pain point for many who are struggling. The faster price growth was driven by a handful of items, including vegetables, sugar, coffee, along with fresh and frozen beef. I spoke to a number of people today who say it's getting more difficult to put food on the table and pay for other necessities.
I have 2 kids and I go to the grocery store and I'll buy 1 bag of groceries and it's like $100 every time.
Some have even tapped into the food bank because they need that extra support during the tough times.
Usually I set a budget of like $250 and that only gets me like a week.
The reasons for the increase in price for each commodity differs. A food expert says for coffee and beef, lower supply and high demand has driven up the cost. Coffee has been impacted by climate change and infestation in some countries, and the Canadian cattle industry is experiencing the lowest number of herds in decades. For the other items, a combination of labor cost increases and tariffs are contributing factors.
There are no retaliatory tariffs in Canada anymore. There were, and some of those costs that you're experiencing in the current StatsCan had been impacted by retaliatory tariffs that the Canadian government had put in place.
Experts say the lingering effects of the retaliatory tariffs will eventually subside and ease food price inflation in the near future. Kathy Lee, CTV News, Calgary.
Well, now to the latest blow for Canada's embattled auto industry. General Motors says it's ending production of its Bright Drop electric delivery van in the community of Ingersoll, Ontario. Industry Minister Melanie Joly says she is working on a plan to support workers who've been impacted.
That's a decision they took. Of course, we'll hold them to account for any support we've given them to develop that model, but at the same time, we are creating a response group to make sure that we're bringing a new model.
General Motors says the decision is related to low demand for the product, adding that production is not being moved elsewhere. Production at the plant was initially halted in April, but it was slated to resume in November with a single shift. About 1,200 unionized workers were employed at the plant before production was suspended. Meanwhile, the Auditor General says the Armed Forces is falling behind on enlisting enough soldiers to meet Canada's operational requirements. and those who do make it into the uniform may not be able to access adequate housing. CTV's Rachel Aiello reports.
While National Defence has lots of plans, a lot of it is based on outdated information.
An alarming assessment from Canada's Auditor General and a quick admission from the Defence Minister.
We have work to do.
Amid a massive military spending boost and this government's renewed efforts to recruit, a pair of audits released today revealed that the Canadian Armed Forces is falling short in two key areas that could have long-term implications.
The Canadian Armed Forces isn't recruiting enough members.
While thousands apply each year, only 1 in 13 candidates make it to basic training, and the military isn't tracking why. Recruitments are also taking twice as long as targeted, and there's instructor and equipment shortages. Compounding this, the forces have failed to plan for and provide enough adequate housing for the recruits that do make the cut.
So this is going to impact retention.
After examining the conditions at a Navy base in Esquimalt, BC, an Army base in Gagetown, New Brunswick, and an Air Force barracks in Trenton, Ontario, the AG found many quarters lacked amenities like Wi-Fi and desperately needed significant repairs.
Toilets weren't working, or there was structural damage to the exterior walls of the buildings. The kind of conditions that you and I wouldn't want to live in.
Critics call these findings unacceptable. But today, the government was adamant that changes are being made.
We know that the better the conditions of living, not just housing, but childcare and dental and medical, things we're investing in, the higher performing they are. We want a high performing military. We have one, we're getting there.
These reports cast new light on long-standing issues that military leaders have pledged to address for years. CTV News asked the current Chief of Defense Staff for comment today, and she declined. Rachel Aiello, CTV News, Ottawa.
And Ottawa has announced its plans to tackle financial crimes.
My aim is to go after organized crime, is to go after those who scam and defraud Canadians.
Finance Minister François-Philippe Champagne says the anti-fraud strategy will be introduced as part of the upcoming federal budget. There will also be an agency that targets money laundering and online fraud. Canadians lost an estimated $643 million to fraud last year. It's estimated to have increased by 300% in the last 5 years. The federal government is making a major investment in an effort to help against Canada's toxic drug crisis.
This work is about saving lives. We need to depoliticize it and use every single tool at our disposal to help people in need.
Ottawa announced it's investing $30 million from the Emergency Treatment Fund for 34 projects. An additional $10 million is going to 6 other projects under the Substance Abuse and Addictions Program. The Emergency Treatment Fund is used to help municipalities and Indigenous communities in the fight against toxic drugs and overdoses. If you're a snowbird heading south of the border this winter, there's a new rule you should be aware of. Canadian snowbirds visiting the U.S. for more than a month are now required to provide fingerprints when crossing the border. The policy applies to anyone over the age of 18. However, it does not apply to those staying less than a month or people with Nexus clearance. Well, back here at home, a group of women in Dawson Creek are making a huge impact on their community. They're called 100 Women Who Care. They meet twice a year, handing out their own money in order to help others.
We try to maintain 150 members. So one of the things is that we're doing right now, we're trying to do a drive. We're trying to get more people to be involved. We do 2 meetings a year. So one is in October and one is in April. So our last meeting was just about 115 members. So we are trying to do a campaign to try to get more people to know about us. And it's important that anybody can join. That is the Dawson Creek area that wants to join. You just have to give your $100 2 times a year. And you don't even have to come to the meeting if you can't come.
Formed in Dawson Creek back in 2016, and since then they've raised almost $210,000 for local charity. On Monday, they met for one of 2 meetings this year. Ark Christian Youth Center was one of the 3 applicants that made a presentation. They were ultimately rewarded with an $11,000 check. 100 Women Who Cares is still looking for more members. Organizers say it's a great way to give back to your community, as well as network with dynamic women. You can contact them at the email listed at the bottom of your screen. All right, please do stay tuned. I'll be right back after the break with weather.